Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Roberts. Welcome to the first edition in 2013 of Effective, Efficient, Affordable, and above all, accountable to you. By way of reminder, the views that I express on this show are those of myself alone. They do not represent or seek to represent the views of the Winstead Board of Education or of the Gilbert School Corp. We have been on break for a couple of months now. That's partly to give you a rest from me, and partly because the developments in town have frankly been so extraordinary that it seemed like a good idea to let them play out a little bit before we talked about them. But we're going to talk about some of those developments here tonight. We're going to talk about secrets, government by secrecy. We are going to talk about epically poor judgment, government by epically poor judgment. And we're going to talk about what happens when you elect as your elected officials people who cannot read, write, or add up. And what happens when those elected officials in turn employ town employees who cannot read, write, or add up. What happens, ladies and gentlemen, is not pretty. Let us not dance around the issue. We are broke. Winstead is fresh out of cash. We stopped paying our bills as a town back in last August. And I'm talking all of our bills. We stopped paying the newspaper to deliver the newspaper. We stopped paying the bus drivers to drive the buses. We stopped paying the moms to drive their special needs kids to school. We stopped paying the gas company, and the oil company, and the telephone company, and the electric company. We stopped paying the life insurance company, and the building insurance company, and the car insurance company, and the medical insurance company. We stopped paying everything. If you're a teacher here in town, ladies and gentlemen, I would not plan on getting sick anytime soon. Because if our insurance carrier, our medical insurance carrier, carries out its threat to cut off our coverage, you'll have no benefits. Bubble wrap your children. Don't let anything happen. And while you're at it, buy them a warm coat and gloves and a hat. Because the electric company is telling us they're going to shut off the schools. And whatever the town manager may think, he may think it's okay to stop paying bills, but we are not closing down the schools. We are not going to stop teaching the kids. If we have to do it in darkness and in the cold, that's what we'll do. We are broke, ladies and gentlemen. We have some $4 million in unpaid bills sitting in shoeboxes on the town manager's desk. $4 million. And that number's growing. Is there any wonder, ladies and gentlemen, that he seems to prefer the sanctity of his windowsill? But the fact that we're broke is not the worst of it. We have talked extensively in the past about government by secrets, and how government by secrets doesn't work out so well. Secrets always come out, ladies and gentlemen, always. Well, the goal here was to keep this one a secret, the fact that we were broke, the fact that we weren't paying bills. Town manager has refused steadfastly to provide any information on this subject. Members of the public have been asking, where are we? How are we paying our bills? Are we paying our bills? Are we going to get through year end? Okay. Members of the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen have been asking, give us the numbers, give us the cash flow projections. Absolutely nothing. Town manager is hid behind the quote-unquote advice from the town attorney that he can't talk about bills. Well, I got news for you, ladies and gentlemen. The town attorney has never said we can't talk about bills. He said we shouldn't talk about the audit, an instruction where the town manager has roundly ignored, running around town, gleefully telling people he expects to arrest people in no short order. But about bills, about our financial condition, nothing. We're broke, they try to keep it a secret. Grudgingly, late in December, they announced that, well, maybe perhaps there are a few bills we haven't sort of paid, or maybe perhaps it may be as much as $700,000. And it's like, whoa, $700,000? And yet no one seemed very excited. A majority of the Board of Finance kind of were like poo-pooed it. They didn't care. Because it wasn't $700,000, ladies and gentlemen. It was $4 million. And it wasn't the town manager who finally fessed up to the $4 million number. It was our Board of Education who finally sent a letter to say, give us our money. We don't expect you to give us more money than we deserve, but we do expect you to pay the bills. $4 million, ladies and gentlemen. No one was going to tell us. No one was going to tell the Board of Finance. No one was going to tell the press. No one was going to tell the public. $4 million. And we as a community have to get over this. We have to get over this idea that it's somehow unneighborly, unmannerly, impolite to ask questions. It is not. It is not evil to press for information. It is not political to say, look, give us the straight scoop. We expect our elected leaders to ask the questions to make sure that the town employees are doing their jobs. And we have an equal duty as citizens to ask the questions and make sure that our elected officials are doing their jobs. Questions are not the problem, ladies and gentlemen. Secrets are the problem. We're broke. We have $4 million in unpaid bills sitting in shoeboxes all over Town Hall. Town Hall, at least the town manager, wants to keep it a secret. Mayor wants to keep it a secret. Really doesn't seem to care very much. And now the secret's out. And perhaps we wouldn't care so much. Perhaps we wouldn't care so much if the mayor and the town manager had some brilliant idea for solving this situation. If they were coming to us and saying, here's the solution. It's effective, it's efficient, it's affordable, it's accountable, it's all those good things that Roberts guy keeps talking about. But they haven't come forward with that solution. They're not even willing to acknowledge the problem. The only solution they have come forward with is let's try to keep it secret and let's just not pay the bills. Well, I got news for you, ladies and gentlemen. Not paying the bills is not a solution for not being able to pay the bills. You know this in your own lives. You don't pay the electricity, they shut you off. You don't pay the mortgage, they take away your house. You don't feed your kid, they take away your kid. No one seems to operate like that in Town Hall. There are no solutions being offered. You and I, we know what the solutions are. It's some combination of having less bills and having more money. Regular viewers of this program aren't going to like this, but going forward, we are going to have to raise more money, more taxes, to pay for less bills, less services. We will be cutting services and raising taxes, and that's just in the long haul. In the near haul, there's going to be a supplemental tax. There's no two ways about it. There's going to have to be a supplemental tax to dig us out of this hole. And I'm not talking $500,000 or $1 million. I'm talking $5 million, $10 million. If you are not worried yet in this program, focus on those numbers. $5 million, $10 million, worst case, more. That's what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about an epic catastrophe here in Winsted. So those numbers should give you some pause. $4 million in unpaid bills, the likelihood of cutting services, the likelihood of raising taxes, an immediate supplemental tax should be in the order of $5 million, maybe 10, could be higher. Presumably, all sorts of people are taking all sorts of drastic action. You think? Well, the town manager, he's blaming everyone else. In response to an email calling for his immediate dismissal, he sent a veritable screed to the world. He starts with a nursery rhyme. That is the level of seriousness that he accords this issue. His nursery rhyme is "The Emperor Has No Clothes." I got news for you. If you want to start with a nursery rhyme, and it's wholly inappropriate that you do, Humpty Dumpty is the nursery rhyme to start with. All the king's men and all the king's horses couldn't put Humpty together again. So after a little peregrination through 19th century literature, the town manager blames internal controls, or the lack thereof. He is in charge of internal controls. He blames everyone. Everyone knows we have a problem. That's true, everyone does know we have a problem, but he's the man who's paid to disclose it, to analyze it, and to fix it. He blames the actions of the finance director. He's in charge of the finance director. He blames the fact that the finance director has made heroic efforts to pay bills, as if paying bills was somehow the fault, or somehow the cause of not paying bills. He blames the Water and Sewer Commission, because apparently they are the root cause of this problem. In a bold move, he blames former Mayor Perez and current Mayor Welcome for just not giving a damn. And finally, he blames the great unknown. Having first of all said that everyone knows there is a problem, he then goes on to say that no one knew there was a problem, that until the audit came out, there was no problem. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the audit came out some 14 months ago, 13 months ago. He has had ample opportunity to read the financial statements, to see what is very explicitly described therein, and to understand we have a problem. So what is the town manager doing about the problem? Keeping it a secret, failing at that as everything else, and then simply blaming everyone other than himself. The Board of Selectmen generally, their solution is shrubbery. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, they would like you to vote tomorrow, Thursday, 8 to 8, Town Hall, to authorize $400,000 worth of shrubbery. Shrubbery will make you forget your worries. Shrubbery will create harmony and concord. Shrubbery is the solution to our problems. By all means, ladies and gentlemen, go to Town Hall tomorrow, vote, and vote no. We do not need to spend $400,000 that we don't have on shrubbery. If we had $400,000 to spend, we should be spending it on roads. The fact is, we don't have a brass nickel to spend. We're $4 million in debt, and the number is growing. What is Candy Perez, Selectman Perez, doing about this issue? She has Richard Nolet, Chief of Water and Sewer, firmly in her gun sights. She has decided that Richard Nolet must go because he has not raised water and sewer rates in many years. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, because he has provided a service without raising taxes, without increasing taxes, that he must go. Now, the simple fact of the matter is, Richard Nolet, the Water and Sewer Commission, don't need to raise water and sewer rates. They provide an excellent service. They've paid their bills. They pay the interest costs on their debt. And they produce a couple of $100,000 to put into the kitty. That's the definition of good government, ladies and gentlemen. Providing a service, doing it on budget, and putting a little money away each and every year. But that's not good enough for Candy Perez. In her mind, government, democratic government, asks for more, spends more each and every year, even if it produces a worse result. Richard Nolet has not asked to increase sewer rates and water rates, and therefore Richard Nolet must go. George Claassen, what's his reaction to the great financial crisis? He also wants Richard Nolet to go. Not because of any philosophical view about sewer rates, he just doesn't like the guy. George Claassen has made a crusade of his time in government getting rid of people. Tony Cannavo, Ray Carpentino, Wayne Duff, Paul Veyer. Did his damnedest to get rid of Scott Eisenlaw, and now Richard Nolet is just the latest on the long list. As to who will be next, who knows? Selectmen DeVita and Renzullo, what are they up to? Well, they are actually doing the best thing they've done ever since they were seated. They are keeping very, very quiet. Congratulations. That was a good move. Mayor Welcome. Mayor Welcome really doesn't see that there's a problem at all. She has a process in place for reviewing the town manager. It involves a multi-page review, many pertinent questions, lots of colored charts. It's a wonderful thing. Who gives a damn about cash flow? There's no problem. And Selectmen Fracasco and Albanese, what are they doing? They're doing what they've been doing for months. They're asking for information. They are calling for the information that we can sit down as a single group and actually begin to craft some solutions. And yes, they're calling for accountability too. They're calling for the removal of the town manager because he manifestly and palpably cannot, will not, and has not done his job. I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but that seems like the right response. Get the information, come up with a solution, hold people accountable. That's what I'm looking for in government. So how do we get there? How do we get to a point where we have $4 million in unpaid bills sitting in shoeboxes? How do we get to the point where we need $5 to $10 million, maybe more, in a supplemental tax immediately? The answer is pretty simple. It's not rocket science. You don't have to be English. You don't have to have a funny accent. You don't have to work in New York to understand how we got there. The way people made their decisions, that's a different question. But the way we've gotten here is threefold. All of them simple, predictable, easy to understand. The first is a matter of timing. Winsted, in common with all Connecticut municipalities, tends to collect its revenues more in the second half of the year than in the first half of the year. And yet it spends its money on a more equal basis. What that means is that the first half of the year, they're always short cash. This is true of all Connecticut municipalities because Connecticut municipalities rely on state grants. And the state disperses its grants in the second half of the year because the state never knows when it's going to run out of money. And so it back-ends everything. And the way Connecticut towns deal with this and the way Winsted has historically dealt with it is that they keep cash on hand, funds, balances, and they borrow from those funds. In the lean years of November, in the lean months, I beg your pardon, of November and December. And that's what historically Winsted has done. We have borrowed from the various funds that we have under town control to get us through the lean months. What we've not done historically is to spend our fund balance. Because the finance department never in its wildest imagination did it ever believe that the town manager or the board of selectmen would be stupid enough to spend the fund balance. Because that is the final frontier. That is the final insurance policy that we have. And yet that's exactly what this administration did about a year ago. In the first official act of this administration, the fund balance was spent. It was given to the Board of Education. The money that we rely upon to pay our bills in November, December was spent. Now, Mayor Wellcome has never disclosed whether she spent all of it or just most of it. The audit that is currently so delayed will answer that question, and maybe it's a coincidence that she does not want that audit released. But the fact of the matter is, if we're $4 million behind in our payments, I think we can safely assume that it's all gone at this point. So reason number one for where we are is because we spent the fund balance. We spent the money that we need to get us through the lean months. We did so knowingly. We did so without any advice not to from our town manager. This was an entirely self-inflicted wound. And even having spent it, we could have managed our cash flows to manage around this situation. We just couldn't be bothered. That's reason number one. And reason number one simply creates the issue that we have here in January. It will not create a deficit at the end of the year. It is just a timing matter during the year itself. Reason number two, even simpler. You will recall we couldn't get a budget passed last year. After several attempts, the town manager and mayor came up with a brilliant solution. The way to get a budget passed is to lie to people. Let's just call it a balanced budget. Let's create a bunch of bogus revenues. Let's hide a bunch of actual expenses. We can call it balanced and people will pass it. That's exactly what happened. 6 weeks after passing the budget, the town manager is forced to acknowledge that the revenue assumptions are entirely bogus. And that the police overtime assumptions are entirely bogus too. And in his mind, there was, 6 weeks after passing the budget, already the likelihood of a $200,000 deficit. A deficit which will probably be more than that by year end. So reason number one, timing. We spent the fund balance. We spent the last bastion of defense. Reason number two, we fudged the budget. We lied to you. We said it was balanced when it wasn't. We made up a bunch of revenues and hid a bunch of expenses. Reason number three is even more breathtaking. Water and sewer. As we said before, water and sewer is a nice little business. It pays its expenses, its staff, its electricity costs, its water costs, all the rest of it. Pays the interest on its debt. It does not pay the principal on its debt. Water and sewer has principal payments of $750,000 to $1 million a year. As a business that only generates $100,000 to $150,000 a year, how anyone might expect water and sewer to pay its own debt principal is a ridiculous idea. Now, the simple fact of the matter is the financial statements, the audit, makes it perfectly clear that water and sewer's debt is an obligation of the town. Just as the bond documents make it perfectly clear that water and sewer's debt is an obligation of the town. Mayor Wellcome signed those bond documents. She knows what they say. And one would assume that the town manager has read, one would hope that he's read the financial statements, in which it's made perfectly clear that he's responsible for the bond payments of water and sewer. Now, to give him his due, the town manager has an excuse. He has spent the entire 18 months of his tenure here at movie night. And the funny thing about movie night is it's dark at movie night. You can't see the fine print in the financial statements at movie night. It's a hell of an excuse, ladies and gentlemen. Hell of an excuse. So we are where we are because no one bothered to plan out the cash flows for the 6 months of the year. Because the town manager and mayor rashly spent the last defense, the fund balance. Because no one bothered to check the bond documents to see that we actually had a bond payment coming up this year. And because people were so anxious to pass the balanced budget, they were willing to make up a bunch of bogus revenues and hide a bunch of expenses. It has nothing to do with Henry Centrella, nothing to do with financial irregularities, and everything to do with the town manager and the Board of Selectmen. And frankly, ladies and gentlemen, it has everything to do with us, too. We elected a group of people who cannot read, write, or add up. We allowed that group of people to hire people who cannot read, write, or add up. We did not press them for information. We did not hold them accountable. We still have not held our press accountable for providing a more balanced picture of what is happening here in town. As proximate as the blame of the town manager is as real as the blame that the mayor, both mayors, and the Board of Selectmen face, we also face responsibility for this catastrophe. So what happens next? Well, long term, obviously, it's the 3 R's. We've talked about them. Reduce, reinvest, restructure. That's not going to get us out of the hole in the near term. Near term, we need a supplemental tax. And that supplemental tax, as I say, is going to be at least $5 million. Maybe more. How do we get there? Well, we need $1 million, call it $1.2 million to $1.5 million to put in the fund balance that we can borrow next November and next December to get us through next Christmas. We need to repay the various accounts in town for the money we've taken out to pay water and sewer bonds. That's about $2 million. We need to put aside money for at least this year's water and sewer deficit. That's $1 million. Maybe next year's as well, another $1 million. We need to pay for the deficit arising out of the bogus revenues and the hidden expenses. It's another $200,000 to $400,000. There's $1.5 million of borrowings from the pension fund and the post-retirement benefits. That's where you get to $6 million, ladies and gentlemen. That's assuming that Bank of America and the rest of our creditors don't assume that not paying our bills is a reason to ask for their debt back. If Bank of America wants its money back, we're going to have to raise $15 to $20 million in a supplemental tax. That's up to 100% of an entire year's tax bill. And that buys us nothing. That doesn't buy us shrubbery. That doesn't buy us a police officer. It doesn't buy us roads. That's simply to catch up. Probably $5 million, maybe $10 million. It could be as bad as $20 million. That's the welcome candy catch-up tax. So what's the answer? It's pretty clear. The town manager needs to go. He's not capable or will not do the job. Selectmen Welcome, Perez, Clausen need to acknowledge their role in this. We need to acknowledge that failing to ask the questions, failing to be aware of any of the details of the town's financial situation, failing to ensure that we get regular, complete, accurate, relevant financial information. These are grotesque failures of leadership. They have allowed bad decisions to be made, and they have put us on the brink of bankruptcy. We need to make sure that everyone is part of the solution, Republicans as well as Democrats, because the solution is going to be very hard. We're going to make deep cuts, we're going to raise high taxes, and there needs to be some consensus. We need to acknowledge that there's nothing wrong with water and sewer, that they're doing exactly what they're designed to do. They're providing a service, they're paying their bills, they're meeting the interest costs on their debt. They're not paying the principal. That's the town's obligation. And that's the only way to structure it in a way that makes sense given the size of water and sewer. The audit will play out however it plays out. I have no idea. I have no inside information. But I hope, I expect, that we will find out at the end of the day that Henry Centrella, the finance director, is guilty of nothing more than heroic, if unorthodox, efforts to keep the town afloat, to pay the town's bills. Something which our current town manager didn't feel the need to do. And we need to be super focused, ladies and gentlemen, on the next town manager and the next finance director. We have a deep hole to dig ourselves out of. We will need people with leadership skills, communication skills, analytical skills, and the ability to do hard things. That may cost us more than we currently have in the budget, but we have to hire the right people because we are in a pickle of extraordinary dimensions. And we need to do all of this so that we can do the thing that we should be doing, which is addressing the long-term trends as revealed by the reval. Our town, downtown, is dying. We need to reinvigorate it. It is a tragedy that instead of talking about that we are talking about the town manager's failures to pay bills, the fact that there's $4 million of bills sitting in shoeboxes in town hall. That is a tragedy. This did not happen because of mysterious dark forces. This did not happen because of accident. This did not happen because of something unexpected. Everything that has happened was fully disclosed in the financial statements of the town. Everything that has happened is 100% predictable. The minute the mayor chose to spend the fund balance, the problems of this Christmas became a certainty. The minute the town manager chose to ignore water and sewer's debt, the large year-end deficit became a certainty. The minute we elected people who cannot read, write, or add up, and allowed them to appoint people who cannot read, write, or add up, this debacle became a certainty. We need to ensure that we are electing and that our elected officials are appointing or employing people who can do the job and who will do the job. We got to acknowledge, ladies and gentlemen, that this happened on the watch of Mayors Perez and Welcome. They have collectively been mayor for 8 out of the last 10 years. We have to acknowledge that, not to be personal, not to be political, not to be evil or mean, but simply to acknowledge that we need to elect people who will do the job. We need to elect people not because we like them, or because they're our neighbors, or because we're related to them, or because we hate the other person more. We need to elect people who can do the job, who will do the job. And we need to make sure that they employ people in leadership positions who will do the job, who can do the job. These were self-inflicted wounds, ladies and gentlemen. These were stupid, stupid decisions based out of laziness, based out of a willing blindness, a willful blindness to recognize the true, simple financial facts. And so now we're going to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of political capital fixing this mess when we should be talking about the long-term rebuilding of our town. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what happens when you elect people who cannot read, write, or add up. That's what happens when you try to govern by secrecy. And that's what happens when, in fact, you govern by epically poor judgment. We must hold people accountable, ladies and gentlemen. The town manager needs to go. Mayors Perez and Welcome need to understand that they're in the hot seat. And all of the selectmen and all of the community needs to come together, make sure this is finally resolved in a sensible fashion, and begin the task of rebuilding not just our finances, but our community. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I am sorry that the first show of 2013 was not a happier one, but with that I will wish you a happy new year and the fervent hope and desire that things improve here in Winston. Thank you. Good night.